Book 7. Argument. Single combat of Hector and Ajax. The battle renewing with double ardor upon the return of Hector, Minerva is under apprehensions for the Greeks. Apollo, seeing her descend from Olympus, joins her near the Scaean gate. They agree to put off the general engagement for that day, and incite Hector to challenge the Greeks to a single combat. 9 of the princes accepting the challenge, the lot is cast and falls upon Ajax. These heroes, after several attacks, are parted by the night. The Trojans calling a council, Antenor purposes the delivery of Helen to the Greeks, to which Paris will not consent, but offers to restore them her riches. Priam sends a herald to make this offer, and to demand a truce for burning the dead, the last of which only is agreed to by Agamemnon. When the funerals are performed, the Greeks, pursuant to the advice of Nestor, erect a fortification to protect their fleet and camp, flanked with towers and defended by a ditch and palisades. Neptune testifies his jealousy at this work, but is pacified by a promise from Jupiter. Both armies pass the night in feasting, but Jupiter disheartens the Trojans with thunder and other signs of his wrath. The 23rd day ends with the duel of Hector and Ajax. The next day the truce is agreed. Another is taken up in the funeral rites of the slain, and one more in building the fortification before the ships, so that somewhat about 3 days is employed in this book. The scene lies wholly in the field, so spoke the guardian of the Trojan state. Then rushed impetuous through the Scaean gate him Paris followed to the dire alarms. Both breathing slaughter, both resolved in arms that when to sailors laboring through the main, that long have heaved the weary or in vain, Jove bids at length the expected gales arise. The gales blow grateful, and the vessel flies, so welcome these to Troy's desiring train. The bands are cheered, the war awakes again. Bold Paris first the work of death begun on great Menestheus, Areithus' son, sprung from the fair Philomeda's embrace. The pleasing Arne was his native place. Then sunk Ionius to the shades below, beneath his steely casque 177. He felt the blow full on his neck, from Hector's weighty hand, and rolled, with limbs relaxed, along the land up by Glaucus' spear the bold Iphinus bleeds, fixed in the shoulder as he mounts his steeds. Headlong he tumbles. His slack nerves unbound, drop the cold useless members on the ground, when now Minerva saw her Argives slain, from vast Olympus to the gleaming plain fierce she descends. Apollo marked her flight, nor shot less swift from Ilion's towery height. Radiant they met, beneath the beechen shade. When thus Apollo to the blue-eyed maid, "What cause, O daughter of almighty Jove, thus wings thy progress from the realms above? Once more impetuous dost thou bend thy way, to give to Greece the long divided day. Too much has Troy already felt thy hate. Now breathe thy rage, and hush the stern debate. This day the business of the field suspend. War soon shall kindle and great Ilion bend, since vengeful goddesses confederate join to raise her walls, though built by hands divine." To whom the progeny of Jove replies, "I left, for this, the council of the skies. But who shall bid conflicting hosts forbear? What art shall calm the furious sons of war?" To her the god, "Great Hector's sole insight to dare the boldest Greek to single fight, till Greece, provoked, from all her numbers show a warrior worthy to be Hector's foe." At this agreed, the heavenly powers withdrew. Sage Helenus their secret counsels knew. Hector, inspired, he sought, to him addressed, thus told the dictates of his sacred breast. "O son of Priam, let thy faithful ear receive my words. Thy friend and brother hear. Go forth persuasive, and a while engage the warring nations to suspend their rage. Then dare the boldest of the hostile train to mortal combat on the listed plain. For not this day shall end thy glorious date. The gods have spoke it, and their voice is fate." He said. The warrior heard the word with joy. Then with his spear restrained the youth of Troy, held by the midst athwart. On either hand the squadrons part. The expecting Trojans stand. Great Agamemnon bids the Greeks forbear. They breathe, and hush the tumult of the war. The Athenian maid, 178 and glorious god of day, with silent joy the settling hosts survey. In form of vultures on the beach's height they sit concealed, and wait the future fight. The thronging troops obscure the dusky fields, horrid with bristling spears, and gleaming shields. When a general darkness veils the main. Soft zephyr curling the wide, watery plain. The waves scarce heave, the face of ocean sleeps, and a still horror saddens all the deeps. Thus in thick orders settling wide around, at length composed they sit, and shade the ground. Great Hector first amidst both armies broke the solemn silence, and their powers bespoke. Hear, all ye Trojan, all ye Grecian bands, what my soul prompts, and what some god commands. Great Jove, a verse our warfare to compose, o'erwhelms the nations with new toils and woes. War with a fiercer tide once more returns, till Ilion falls, or till yon navy burns. You then, O princes of the Greeks, appear. 'Tis Hector speaks and calls the gods to hear. From all your troops select the boldest knight, and him, the boldest, Hector dares to fight. Here if I fall, by chance of battle slain, be his my spoil, and his these arms remain. But let my body to my friends returned, by Trojan hands and Trojan flames be burned, and if Apollo, in whose aid I trust, shall stretch your daring champion in the dust, if mine the glory to despoil the foe, on Phoebus' temple I'll his arms bestow, the breathless carcass to your navy sent. Greece on the shore shall raise a monument, which when some future mariner surveys, washed by broad Hellespont's resounding seas, thus shall he say, a valiant Greek lies there, by Hector slain, the mighty man of war. The stone shall tell your vanquished hero's name, and distant ages learn the victor's fame. This fierce defiance Greece astonished heard, blushed to refuse, and to accept it feared. Stern Menelaus first the silence broke, and, inly groaning, thus opprobrious spoke. Women of Greece, O scandal of your race, whose coward souls your manly form disgrace, how great the shame, when every age shall know that not a Grecian met this noble foe. Go then, resolve to earth, from whence ye grew, a heartless, spiritless, inglorious crew. Be what ye seem, unanimated clay, myself will dare the danger of the day. 'Tis man's bold task the generous strife to try, but in the hands of God is victory. These words scarce spoke, with generous ardor pressed, his manly limbs in azure arms he dressed. That day, Atrides, a superior hand had stretched thee breathless on the hostile strand. But all at once, thy fury to compose, the kings of Greece, an awful band, arose. Even he their chief, great Agamemnon, pressed to thy daring hand, and this advice addressed: Whither, O Menelaus, wouldst thou run, and tempt a fate which prudence bids thee shun? Grieved though thou art, forbear the rash design. Great Hector's arm is mightier far than thine. Even fierce Achilles learned its force to fear, and trembling met this dreadful son of war. Sit thou secure, amidst thy social band. Greece in our cause shall arm some powerful hand, the mightiest warrior of the Achaean name, though bold and burning with desire of fame, content the doubtful honor might forego. So great the danger and so brave the foe, he said, and turned his brother's vengeful mind. He stooped to reason, and his rage resigned, no longer bent to rush on certain harms. His joyful friends unbrace his azure arms, he from whose lips divine persuasion flows, grave Nestor, then in graceful act arose. Thus to the kings he spoke: What grief, what shame attend on Greece and all the Grecian name! How shall, alas, her hoary heroes mourn their sons degenerate, and their race a scorn? What tears shall down thy silvery beard be rolled, O Peleus, old in arms, in wisdom old? Once with what joy the generous prince would hear of every chief who fought this glorious war, participate their fame, and pleased inquire each name, each action, and each hero's sire gods. Should he see our warriors trembling stand, and trembling all before one hostile hand? How would he lift his aged arms on high, lament inglorious Greece, and beg to die? Oh, would to all the immortal powers above, Minerva, Phoebus, and almighty Jove, years might again roll back, my youth renew, and give this arm the spring which once it knew when fierce in war. Where Jardan's waters fall, I led my troops to Phe's trembling wall, and with the Arcadian spears my prowess tried, where Celadon rolls down his rapid tide. 179 There Eruthalion braved us in the field, proud Areithus' dreadful arms to wield. Great Areithus, known from shore to shore be the huge, knotted, iron mace. He bore. No lance he shook, nor bent the twanging bow, but broke, with this, the battle of the foe. Him not by manly force Lycurgus slew, whose guileful javelin from the thicket flew. Years might again roll back, my youth renew, and give this arm the spring which once it knew when fierce in war. Where Jardan's waters fall, I led my troops to Phe's trembling wall, and with the Arcadian spears my prowess tried, where Celadon rolls down his rapid tide. 179 There Eruthalion braved us in the field, proud Arythus' dreadful arms to wield. Great Arythus, known from shore to shore be the huge, knotted, iron mace he bore. No lance he shook, nor bent the twanging bow, but broke, with this, the battle of the foe him not by manly force Lycurgus slew, whose guileful javelin from the thicket flew, deep in a winding way his breast assailed, nor aught the warrior's thundering mace availed supine he fell. Those arms which Mars before had given the vanquished, now the victor bore. But when old age had dimmed Lycurgus' eyes, to Eruthalion he consigned the prize furious with this he crushed our levelled bands, and dared the trial of the strongest hands. Nor could the strongest hands his fury stay. All saw and feared his huge tempestuous sway till I, the youngest of the host, appeared, and youngest met whom all our army feared that I fought the chief. My arms Minerva crowned. Prone fell the giant o'er a length of ground. What then I was, oh were your Nestor now. Not Hector's self should want an equal foe. But warriors, you that youthful vigor boast, the flower of Greece, the examples of our host, sprung from such fathers, who such numbers sway. Can you stand trembling, and desert the day? His warm reproofs the listening kings inflame, and 9, the noblest of the Grecian name, upstarted fierce. But far before the rest, the king of men advanced his dauntless breast. Then bold Tydides, great in arms, appeared, and next his bulk gigantic Ajax reared. Oileus followed. Idomen was there, 180 and Marion, dreadful as the god of war. With these Eurypylus and Thoas stand, and wise Ulysses closed the daring band. All these, alike inspired with noble rage, demand the fight. To whom the Pylian sage, lest thirst of glory your brave souls divide, what chief shall combat? Let the gods decide. Whom heaven shall choose, be his the chance to raise his country's fame, his own immortal praise. The lots produced, each hero signs his own. Then in the general's helm the fates are thrown. 181. The people pray with lifted eyes and hands, and vows like these ascend from all the bands. Grant, thou Almighty, in whose hand is fate, a worthy champion for the Grecian state. This task let Ajax or Tydides prove, or he, the king of kings, beloved by Jove. Old Nestor shook the cask. By heaven inspired, leaped forth the lot of every Greek desired. This from the right to left the herald bears, held out in order to the Grecian peers. Each to his rival yields the mark unknown, till godlike Ajax finds the lot his own. Surveys the inscription with rejoicing eyes, then casts before him, and with transport cries, Warriors! I claim the lot and arm with joy. Be mine the conquest of this chief of Troy. Now while my brightest arms my limbs invest, to Saturn's son be all your vows addressed. But pray in secret, lest the foes should hear, and deem your prayers the mean effect of fear. Said I in secret? No, your vows declare in such a voice as fills the earth and air. Lives there a chief whom Ajax ought to dread. Ajax, in all the toils of battle bred. From warlike Salamis I drew my birth, and, born to combats, fear no force on earth. He said, the troops with elevated eyes implore the god whose thunder rends the skies. O Father of mankind, superior Lord, on lofty Ida's holy hill adored, who in the highest heaven hast fixed thy throne, supreme of gods, unbounded and alone, grant thou that Telamon may bear away the praise and conquest of this doubtful day. Or, if illustrious Hector be thy care, that both may claim it, and that both may share. Now Ajax braced his dazzling armor on. Sheathed in bright steel the giant warrior shone. He moves to combat with majestic pace. So stalks in arms the grisly god of Thrace. 182 When Jove to punish faithless men prepares, and gives whole nations to the waste of wars, thus marched the chief, tremendous as a god. Grimly he smiled. Earth trembled as he strode frowny face. 183. His massy javelin quivering in his hand. He stood, the bulwark of the Grecian band. Through every Argive heart new transport ran. All Troy stood, trembling at the mighty man. Even Hector paused, and with new doubt oppressed, felt his great heart suspended in his breast. 'Twas vain to seek retreat and vain to fear. Himself had challenged, and the foe drew near. Stern Telamon behind his ample shield, as from a brazen tower, o'erlooked the field. Huge was its orb, with 7 thick folds o'ercast of tough bull hides. Of solid brass the last, the work of Tychius, who in highly dwelled in all arts of armory excelled. This Ajax bore before his manly breast, and, threatening, thus his adverse chief addressed. Hector, approach my arm and singly know what strength thou hast, and what the Grecian foe. Achilles shuns the fight, yet some there are, not void of soul and not unskilled in war. Let him, unactive on the sea-beat shore, indulge his wrath and aid our arms no more. Whole troops of heroes Greece has yet to boast, and sends thee one, a sample of her host. Such as I am, I come to prove thy might. No more, be sudden and begin the fight. O son of Telamon, thy country's pride! To Ajax thus the Trojan prince replied, Me as a boy or woman, wouldst thou fright, new to the field, and trembling at the fight? Thou meet'st a chief deserving of thy arms, to combat born and bred amidst alarms. I know to shift my ground, remount the car, turn, charge, and answer every call of war. To right, to left, the dexterous lance I wield, and bear thick battle on my sounding shield. Slash, but open be our fight, and bold each blow. I steal no conquest from it, noble foe. He said, and rising, high above the field whirled the long lance against the 7-fold shield. Full on the brass descending from above through 6 bull hides the furious weapon drove, till in the 7th it fixed. Then Ajax through Hector's shield the forceful javelin flew, his corslet enters, and his garment rends, and glancing downwards, near his flank descends the wary Trojan shrinks, and bending low beneath his buckler, disappoints the blow from their bored shields the chiefs their javelins drew. Then close impetuous, and the charge renew. Fierce as the mountain lions bathed in blood or foaming boars, the terror of the wood. Ajax, Hector his long lance extends, the blunted point against the buckler bends, but Ajax, watchful as his foe drew near, drove through the Trojan targe the knotty spear. It reached his neck with matchless strength impelled, spouts the black gore, and dims his shining shield, yet ceased not Hector thus, but stooping down, in his strong hand upheaved a flinty stone, black, craggy, vast. To this his force he bends. Full on the brazen boss the stone descends. The hollow brass resounded with the shock. Then Ajax seized the fragment of a rock, applied each nerve, and swinging round on high with force tempestuous, let the ruin fly. The huge stone thundering through his buckler broke. His slackened knees received the numbing stroke. Great Hector falls extended on the field, his bulk supporting on the shattered shield. Nor wanted heavenly aid. Apollo's might confirmed his sinews, and restored to fight, and now both heroes their broad falchions drew, in flaming circles round their heads they flew. But then by herald's voice the word was given. The sacred ministers of earth and heaven, divine Talthybius, whom the Greeks employ, and sage Idaeus on the part of Troy, between the swords their peaceful scepters reared. And first Idaeus' awful voice was heard. Hector and Ajax separated by the heralds forbear, my sons, your further force to prove, both dear to men, and both beloved of Jove. To either host your matchless worth is known. Each sounds your praise, and war is all your own. But now the night extends her awful shade. The goddess parts you, be the night obeyed. 184, to whom great Ajax his high soul expressed. O sage, to Hector be these words addressed. Let him, who first provoked our chiefs to fight, let him demand the sanction of the night. If first he asked it, I content obey, and cease the strife when Hector shows the way. O first of Greeks! His noble foe rejoined, whom heaven adorns, superior to thy kind, with strength of body, and with worth of mind. Now martial law commands us to forbear. Hereafter we shall meet in glorious war, some future day shall lengthen out the strife, and let the gods decide of death or life. Since, then, the night extends her gloomy shade, and heaven enjoins it, be the night obeyed. Return, brave Ajax, to thy Grecian friends, and joy the nations whom thy arm defends. As I shall glad each chief and Trojan wife who wearies heaven with vows for Hector's life. But let us, on this memorable day, exchange some gift, that Greece and Troy may say, not hate but glory made these chiefs contend, and each brave foe was in his soul a friend. With that, a sword with stars of silver graced, the baldric studded, and the sheath enchased, he gave the Greek. The generous Greek bestowed a radiant belt that rich with purple glowed. Then with majestic grace they quit the plain. This seeks the Grecian, that the Phrygian train, the Trojan bands returning Hector wait, and hail with joy the champion of their state. Escaped great Ajax, they survey him round, alive, unarmed, and vigorous from his wound. To Troy's high gates the godlike man they bear their present triumph, as their late despair, but Ajax, glorying in his hardy deed, the well-armed Greeks to Agamemnon lead. A steer for sacrifice the king designed, of full 5 years, and of the nobler kind. The victim falls. They strip the smoking hide, the beast they quarter and the joints divide. Then spread the tables, the repast prepare, each takes his seat and each receives his share. The king himself an honorary sign, before great Ajax placed the mighty chine. 185. When now the rage of hunger was removed, Nestor, in each persuasive art approved, the sage whose counsels long had swayed the rest, in words like these his prudent thought expressed. How dear, O kings, this fatal day has cost, what Greeks are perished, what a people lost, what tides of blood have drenched Scamander's shore, what crowds of heroes sunk to rise no more. Then hear me, chief, nor let the morrow's light awake thy squadrons to new toils of fight. Some space at least permit the war to breathe, while we to flames our slaughtered friends bequeath. From the red field their scattered bodies bear, and nigh the fleet a funeral structure rear. So decent urns their snowy bones may keep, and pious children o'er their ashes weep here, where on one promiscuous pile they blazed, high o'er them all a general tomb be raised. Next, to secure our camp and naval powers, raise an embattled wall, with lofty towers. From space to space be ample gates around, for passing chariots, and a trench profound, so Greece to combat shall in safety go, nor fear the fierce incursions of the foe. 'Twas thus the sage his wholesome counsel moved. The sceptred kings of Greece his words approved. Meanwhile, convened at Priam's palace gate, the Trojan peers in nightly council sate. A senate void of order, as of choice. Their hearts were fearful and confused, their voice, Antenor, rising, thus demands their ear. Ye Trojans, Dardans, and auxiliars, hear, 'tis heaven the counsel of my breast inspires, and I but move what every god requires. Let Sparta's treasures be this hour restored, and Argive Helen own her ancient lord. The ties of faith, the sworn alliance, broke, our impious battles the just gods provoked. As this advice ye practice, or reject, so hope success, or dread the dire effect. The senior spoke and sate, to whom replied the graceful husband of the Spartan bride. Cold counsels, Trojan, may become thy years, but sound ungrateful in a warrior's ears. Old man, if void of fallacy or art, thy words express the purpose of thy heart. Thou, in thy time, more sound advice hast given. But wisdom has its date, assigned by heaven. Then hear me, princes of the Trojan name. Their treasures I'll restore, but not the dame. My treasures too, for peace, I will resign. But be this bright possession ever mine. 'Twas then, the growing discord to compose, slow from his seat the reverend Priam rose. His godlike aspect deep attention drew. He paused, and these pacific words ensue. Ye Trojans, Dardans, and auxiliar bands, now take refreshment as the hour demands. Guard well the walls, relieve the watch of night, till the new sun restores the cheerful light. Then shall our herald, to the Atrides sent, before their ships proclaim my son's intent. Next let a truce be asked, that Troy may burn her slaughtered heroes, and their bones inurn. That done, once more the fate of war be tried, and whose the conquest, mighty Jove decide. The monarch spoke, the warriors snatched with haste, each at his post in arms, a short repast. Soon as the rosy morn had waked the day, to the black ships Idaeus bent his way. There, to the sons of Mars in council found, he raised his voice. The host stood listening round. Ye sons of Atreus, and ye Greeks, give ear. The words of Troy and Troy's great monarch, hear, pleased may ye hear, so heaven succeed my prayers. What Paris, author of the war, declares, the spoils and treasures he to Ilion bore, oh, had he perished ere they touched our shore. He proffers injured Greece, with large increase of added Trojan wealth to buy the peace. But to restore the beauteous bride again, this Greece demands, and Troy requests in vain. Next, O ye chiefs, we ask a truce to burn our slaughtered heroes, and their bones inurn. That done, once more the fate of war be tried, and whose the conquest mighty Jove decide. The Greeks gave ear, but none the silence broke. At length Tydides rose and rising spoke, "Oh, take not, friends, defrauded of your fame, their proffered wealth, nor even the Spartan dame. Let conquest make them ours. Fate shakes their wall, and Troy already totters to her fall." The admiring chiefs and all the Grecian name, with general shouts returned him loud acclaim. Then thus the King of Kings rejects the peace. "Herald, in him thou hear'st the voice of Greece for what remains. Let funeral flames be fed with heroes' core. I war not with the dead. Go search your slaughtered chiefs on yonder plain, and gratify the manes of the slain. Be witness, Jove, whose thunder rolls on high." He said, and reared his scepter to the sky to sacred Troy, where all her princes lay to wait the event. The herald bent his way that he came, and standing in the midst, explained the peace rejected. But the truce obtained, straight to their several cares the Trojans move. Some searched the plains, some fell the sounding grove. Nor less the Greeks, descending on the shore, hewed the green forests and the bodies bore. And now from forth the chambers of the main, to shed his sacred light on earth again, arose the golden chariot of the day, and tipped the mountains with a purple white mingled throngs the Greek and Trojan train. Through heaps of carnage searched the mournful plain. Scarce could the friend his slaughtered friend explore, with dust dishonored, and deformed with gore. The wounds they washed, their pious tears they shed, and, laid along their cars, deplored the dead sage Priam checked their grief. With silent haste the bodies decent on the piles were placed. With melting hearts the cold remains they burned, and sadly slow to sacred Troy returned, nor less the Greeks their pious sorrows shed, and decent on the pile disposed the dead. The cold remains consume with equal care, and slowly, sadly, to their fleet repair. Now, ere the morn had streaked with reddening light the doubtful confines of the day and night, about the dying flames the Greeks appeared, and round the pile a general tomb they reared. Then, to secure the camp and naval powers, they raised embattled walls with lofty towers. Frowny face 186. From space to space were ample gates around, for passing chariots, and a trench profound of large extent. And deep in earth below, strong piles infixed stood adverse to the Epha, so toiled the Greeks. Meanwhile the gods above, in shining circle round their father Jove, amazed beheld the wondrous works of man. Then he, whose trident shakes the earth, began, "What mortals henceforth shall our power adore, our fanes frequent, our oracles implore, if the proud Grecians thus successful boast their rising bulwarks on the sea-beat coast? See the long walls extending to the main, no god consulted, and no victim slain. Their fame shall fill the world's remotest ends, wide as the morn her golden beam extends, while old Laomedon's divine abodes, those radiant structures raised by laboring gods, shall, raised and lost in long oblivion sleep." Thus spoke the hoary monarch of the deep. The almighty thunderer with a frown replies, that clouds the world, and blackens half the skies. "Strong god of ocean, thou whose rage can make the solid earth's eternal basis shake, what cause of fear from mortal works could move? 187. The meanest subject of our realms above. Where'er the sun's refulgent rays are cast, thy power is honored, and thy fame shall last. But yon proud work no future age shall view, no trace remain where once the glory grew. The sapped foundations by thy force shall fall, and, whelmed beneath the waves, drop the huge wall. Vast drifts of sand shall change the former shore. The ruin vanished, and the name no more. Thus they in heaven, while, o'er the Grecian train, the rolling sun descending to the main beheld the finished work. Their bulls they slew. Back from the tents the savory vapor flew, and now the fleet, arrived from Lemnos strands, with Bacchus' blessings cheered the generous bands. Of fragrant wines the rich Euneus sent 1,000 measures to the royal tent. Euneus, whom Hypsipyle of Jason, shepherd of his people, bore, the rest they purchased at their proper cost, and well the plenteous freight supplied the host. Each, in exchange, proportioned treasures gave. Wink with a frown 188. Some, brass or iron. Some, an ox or slave. All night they feast, the Greek and Trojan powers, those on the fields and these within their towers, but Jove averse the signs of wrath displayed, and shot red lightnings through the gloomy shade. Humbled they stood, pale horror seized on all, while the deep thunder shook the aerial hall. Each poured to Jove before the bowl was crowned, and large libations drenched the thirsty ground. Then late, refreshed with sleep from toils of fight, enjoyed the balmy blessings of the night. Book 8. Argument at the second battle, and the distress of the Greeks. Jupiter assembles a council of the deities, and threatens them with the pains of Tartarus if they assist either side. Minerva only obtains of him that she may direct the Greeks by her counsels. The armies join battle. Jupiter on Mount Ida weighs in his balances the fates of both, and affrights the Greeks with his thunders and lightnings. Nestor alone continues in the field in great danger. Diomed relieves him, whose exploits and those of Hector are excellently described. Juno endeavors to animate Neptune to the assistance of the Greeks, but in vain. The axe of Teucer, who is at length wounded by Hector, and carried off. Juno and Minerva prepare to aid the Grecians, but are restrained by Iris, sent from Jupiter. The night puts an end to the battle. Hector continues in the field, the Greeks being driven to their fortifications before the ships, and gives orders to keep the watch all night in the camp, to prevent the enemy from re-embarking and escaping by flight. They kindle fires through all the fields, and pass the night under arms. The time of 27 days is employed from the opening of the poem to the end of this book. The scene here, except of the celestial machines, lies in the field towards the seashore. Aurora now, fair daughter of the dawn, sprinkled with rosy light the dewy lawn. When Jove convened the senate of the skies, where high Olympus' cloudy tops arise, the sire of gods his awful silence broke. The heavens attentive trembled as he spoke. Frowny face 189. Celestial states, immortal gods, give ear, hear our decree, and reverence what ye hear. The fixed decree which not all heaven can move. Thou, fate, fulfill it, and ye powers approve. What god but enters yon forbidden field, who yields assistance, or but wills to yield, back to the skies with shame he shall be driven, gashed with dishonest wounds, the scorn of heaven. Or far, oh far, from steep Olympus' throne, low in the dark Tartarian gulf shall groan, with burning chains fixed to the brazen floors, and locked by hell's inexorable doors. As deep beneath the infernal center hurled, 190 as from that center to the ethereal world. Let him who tempts me dread those dire abodes, and know the Almighty is the God of gods. League all your forces, then, ye powers above, join all and try the omnipotence of Jove. Let down our golden everlasting chain 191, whose strong embrace holds heaven and earth and main strive all of mortal and immortal birth to drag, by this, the thunderer down to earth. Ye strive in vain. If I but stretch this hand, I heave the gods, the ocean, and the land. I fix the chain to great Olympus' height, and the vast world hangs trembling in my sight. For such I reign, unbounded and above, and such are men and gods compared to Jove. The Almighty spoke, nor durst the powers reply. A reverend horror silenced all the sky. Trembling they stood before their sovereign's look. At length his best beloved, the power of wisdom, spoke. O first and greatest, God, by gods adored we own thy might, our Father and our Lord. But, permit to pity human state. If not to help, at least lament their fate. From fields forbidden we submiss refrain, with arms unaiding mourn our Argives slain. Yet grant my counsels still their breasts may move, or all must perish in the wrath of Jove. The cloud-compelling god her suit approved, and smiled superior on his best beloved. Then called his coursers and his chariot took. The steadfast firmament beneath them shook. Wrapped by the ethereal steeds the chariot rolled. Brass were their hoofs, their curling manes of gold. Of heaven's undrossy gold the god's array, refulgent, flashed intolerable day. High on the throne he shines. His coursers fly between the extended earth and starry sky. But when to Ida's topmost height he came, fair nurse of fountains and of savage game, where o'er her pointed summits proudly raised, his fane breathed odors, and his altar blazed. There, from his radiant car, the sacred sire of gods and men released the steeds of fire. Blue ambient mists the immortal steeds embraced. High on the cloudy point his seat he placed. Thence his broad eye the subject world surveys, the town and tents and navigable seas. Now had the Grecians snatched a short repast, and buckled on their shining arms with haste Troy roused as soon. For on this dreadful day the fate of fathers, wives, and infants lay. The gates unfolding pour forth all their train. Squadrons on squadrons cloud the dusky plain. Men, steeds, and chariots shake the trembling ground, the tumult thickens, and the skies resound. And now with shouts the shocking armies closed, to lances lances, shields to shields opposed, host against host with shadowy legends drew, the sounding darts in iron tempests flew, victors and vanquished join promiscuous cries, triumphant, shouts and dying groans arise, with streaming blood the slippery fields are dyed, and slaughtered heroes swell the dreadful tide. Long as the morning beams, increasing bright, o'er heaven's clear azure spread the sacred light, commutual death the fate of war confounds, each adverse battle gored with equal wounds. But when the sun the height of heaven ascends, the sire of gods his golden scale suspends. 192 with equal hand, in these explored the fate of Greece and Troy, and poised the mighty weight. Pressed with its load, the Grecian balance lies low sunk on earth, the Trojan strikes the skies. Then Jove from Ida's top his horrors spreads. The clouds burst dreadful o'er the Grecian heads. Thick lightnings flash, the muttering thunder rolls. Their strength he withers, and unmans their souls. Before his wrath the trembling hosts retire. The gods in terrors, and the skies on fire, nor great Idomeneus that sight could bear, nor each stern Ajax, thunderbolts of war. Nor he, the king of war, the alarm. Sustained Nestor alone, amidst the storm remained. Unwilling he remained, for Paris' dart had pierced his courser in a mortal part. Fixed in the forehead, where the springing mane curled o'er the brow, it stung him to the brain. Mad with his anguish, he begins to rear, paw with his hoofs aloft, and lash the air. Scarce had his falchion cut the reins, and freed the encumbered chariot from the dying steed, when dreadful Hector, thundering through the war, poured to the tumult on his whirling car. That day had stretched beneath his matchless hand the hoary monarch of the Pylian band, but Diomed beheld. From forth the crowd he rushed, and on Ulysses called aloud, "Whither, oh whither does Ulysses run? O flight unworthy great Laertes' son! Mixed with the vulgar shall thy fate be found, pierced in the back, a vile, dishonest wound. O turn and save from Hector's direful rage the glory of the Greeks, the Pylian sage." His fruitless words are lost unheard in air. Ulysses seeks the ships, and shelters there. But bold Tydides to the rescue goes, a single warrior midst a host of foes. Before the coursers with a sudden spring he leaped, and anxious thus bespoke the king. "Great perils, father, wait the unequal fight. These younger champions will oppress thy might. Thy veins no more with ancient vigor glow, weak is thy servant, and thy coursers slow. Then haste, ascend my seat, and from the car observe the steeds of Tros, renowned in war, practiced alike to turn, to stop, to chase, to dare the fight, or urge the rapid race. These late obeyed Aeneas' guiding rein. Leave thou thy chariot to our faithful train. With these against yon Trojans will we go. Nor shall great Hector want an equal foe. Fierce as he is, even he may learn to fear the thirsty fury of my flying spear." Thus said the chief, and Nestor, skilled in war, approves his counsel and ascends the car. The steeds he left, their trusty servants hold, Eurymedon and Sthenelus the bold. The reverend charioteer directs the course, and strains his aged arm to lash the horse Hector they face. Unknowing how to fear, fierce he drove on. Tydides whirled his spear, the spear with erring haste mistook its way, but plunged in Aeniopius' bosom lay. His opening hand in death forsakes the rein. The steeds fly back. He falls and spurns the plain. Great Hector sorrows for his servant killed, yet unrevenged permits to press the field. Till, to supply his place and rule the car, rose Archeptolemus, the fierce in war, and now had death and horror covered all wink with a frown. 193. Like timorous flocks the Trojans in their wall enclosed had bled. But Jove with awful sound drolled the big thunder o'er the vast profound. Full in Tydides' face the lightning flew. The ground before him flamed with sulphur blue. The quivering steeds fell prostrate at the sight, and Nestor's trembling hand confessed his fright. He dropped the reins, and shook with sacred dread, thus turning, warned the intrepid Diomed. "O chief, too daring in thy friend's defense retire advised, and urge the chariot hence. This day, averse, the sovereign of the skies assists great Hector, and our palm denies. Some other son may see the happier hour, when Greece shall conquer by his heavenly power. 'Tis not in man his fixed decree to move, the great will glory to submit to Jove. O reverend prince," Tydides thus replies, "thy years are awful, and thy words are wise. But what grief, should haughty Hector boast I fled inglorious to the guarded coast. before that dire disgrace shall blast my fame, o'erwhelm me, earth, and hide a warrior's shame. To whom Gerenian Nestor thus replied, frowny face 194. Gods, can thy courage fear the Phrygians' pride? Hector may vaunt, but who shall heed the boast? Not those who felt thy arm, the Dardan host, nor Troy, yet bleeding in her heroes lost. Not even a Phrygian dame, who dreads the sword that laid in dust her loved, lamented lord. He said, and hasty, o'er the gasping throng drives the swift steeds. The chariot smokes along. The shouts of Trojans thicken in the wind. The storm of hissing javelins pours behind. Then with a voice that shakes the solid skies, pleased, Hector braves the warrior as he flies. Go, mighty hero, graced above the resten seats of council and the sumptuous feast. Now hope no more those honors from thy train. Go less than woman in the form of man, to scale our walls, to wrap our towers in flames, to lead in exile the fair Phrygian dames. Thy once proud hopes, presumptuous prince, are fled. This arm shall reach thy heart, and stretch thee dead. Now fears dissuade him, and now hopes invite to stop his coursers, and to stand the fight. Thrice turned the chief, and thrice imperial Jove on Ida's summits thundered from above. Great Hector heard. He saw the flashing light, the sign of conquest, and thus urged the fight. Here every Trojan, Lycian, Dardan band, all famed in war and dreadful hand to hand, be mindful of the wreaths your arms have won, your great forefathers' glories, and your own. Heard ye the voice of Jove? Success and fame await on Troy, on Greece eternal shamed, in vain they skulk behind their boasted wall, weak bulwarks. Destined by this arm to fall, high o'er their slighted trench our steeds shall bound, and pass victorious o'er the levelled mound. Soon as before yon hollow ships we stand, fight each with flames, and toss the blazing brand. Till, their proud navy wrapped in smoke and fires, all Greece, encompassed in one blaze expires. Furious he said. Then bending o'er the yoke, encouraged his proud steeds, while thus he spoke. Now, Xanthus, Ethon, Lampus, urge the chase, and thou, Podargus, prove thy generous race. Be fleet, be fearless, this important day, and all your master's well-spent care repay. For this, high-fed, in plenteous stalls ye stand, served with pure wheat, and by a princess hand. For this my spouse of great Aetion's line, so oft has steeped the strengthening grain in wine. Now swift pursue, now thunder uncontrolled. Give me to seize rich Nestor's shield of gold. From Tydeus' shoulders strip the costly load, Vulcanian arms, the labor of a god. These if we gain, then, victory, ye powers. This night, this glorious night, the fleet is ours. That heard, deep anguish stung Saturnia's soul. She shook her throne, that shook the starry pole, and thus to Neptune. Thou, whose force can make the steadfast earth from her foundations shake, sayest thou the Greeks by fates unjust oppressed, nor swells thy heart in that immortal breast. Yet Aegae Helicè, thy power obey, 195 and gifts unceasing on thine altars lay, would all the deities of Greece combine, in vain the gloomy thunderer might repine. Sole should he sit, with scarce a god to friend, and see his Trojans to the shades descend. Such be the scene from his Idaean bower. Ungrateful prospect to the sullen power. Neptune with wrath rejects the rash design. What rage, what madness, furious queen, is thine? I war not with the highest. All above submit and tremble at the hand of Jove. Now godlike Hector, to whose matchless might Jove gave the glory of the destined fight, squadrons on squadrons drives, and fills the fields with close-ranged chariots, and with thickened shields where the deep trench in length extended lay, compacted troops stand wedged in firm array, a dreadful front. They shake the brands and threat with long-destroying flames the hostile fleet. The king of men, by Juno's self-inspired, toiled through the tents, and all his army fired swift as he moved. He lifted in his hand his purple robe, bright ensign of command. High on the midmost bark the king appeared. There, from Ulysses' deck, his voice was heard. To Ajax and Achilles reached the sound, whose distant ships the guarded navy bound. O Argives, shame of human race, he cried. The hollow vessels to his voice replied. Where now are all your glorious boasts of your hasty triumphs on the Lemnian shore? Each fearless hero dares 100 foes, while the feast lasts, and while the goblet flows. But who to meet one martial man is found, when the fight rages and the flames surround? O mighty Jove, O sire of the distressed, was ever king like me oppressed? With power immense, with justice armed in vain, my glory ravished and my people slain, to thee my vows were breathed from every shore. What altar smoked not with our victims' gore? With fat of bulls I fed the constant flame, and asked destruction to the Trojan name. Now, gracious God, far humbler our demand. Give these at least to 'scape from Hector's hand, and save the relics of the Grecian land. Thus prayed the king, and heaven's great father heard his vows, in bitterness of soul preferred. The wrath appeased, by happy signs declares, and gives the people to their monarch's prayers. His eagle, sacred bird of heaven, he sent, a fawn his talons trust, divine portent. High o'er the wondering hosts he soared above, who paid their vows to Panamphian Jove. Then let the prey before his altar fall. The Greeks beheld, and transport seized on all. Encouraged by the sign, the troops revive, and fierce on Troy with doubled fury drive. Tydides first, of all the Grecian force, o'er the broad ditch impelled his foaming horse, pierced the deep ranks, their strongest battle tore, and dyed his javelin red with Trojan gore. Young Agelos, Phradmon was his sire, with flying coursers, shunned his dreadful ire. Struck through the back, the Phrygian fell oppressed. The dart drove on and issued at his breast. Headlong he quits the car. His arms resound. His ponderous buckler thunders on the ground. Forth rush a tide of Greeks, the passage freed. The Atridae first, the Ajaces next succeed. Marians, like Mars in arms renowned, and godlike Idaman, now pass the mound. Evamon's son next issues to the foe, and last young Teucer with his bended bow secure behind the Telamonian shield. Skillful archer wide surveyed the field, with every shaft some hostile victim slew, then close beneath the sevenfold orb withdrew. The conscious infant so, when fear alarms, retires for safety to the mother's arms. Thus Ajax guards his brother in the field, moves as he moves, and turns the shining shield. Who first by Teucer's mortal arrows bled? Orsilochus. Then fell Ormenus dead. The godlike Lycophon next pressed the plain, with Chromius, Dator, Ophelestes slain. Bold Hamapaean breathless sunk to ground. The bloody pile great Melanippus crowned. Heaps fell on heaps, sad trophies of his art, a Trojan ghost attending every dart. Great Agamemnon views with joyful eye the ranks grow thinner as his arrows fly. O youth forever dear, the monarch cried, thus, always thus, thy early worth be tried. Thy brave example shall retrieve our host, thy country's savior, and thy father's boast. Sprung from an alien's bed thy sire to grace, the vigorous offspring of a stolen embrace. Proud of his boy, he owned the generous flame, and the brave son repays his cares with fame. Now hear a monarch's vow. If heaven's high powers give me to raise Troy's long-defended towers, whatever treasures Greece for me design, the next rich honorary gift be thine. Some golden tripod or distinguished car, with coursers dreadful in the ranks of war. Or some fair captive, whom thy eyes approve, shall recompense the warrior's toils with love. To this the chief. With praise the rest inspire, nor urge a soul already filled with fire. What strength I have, be now in battle tried, till every shaft in Phrygian blood be dyed. Since rallying from our wall we forced the foe, still aimed at Hector have I bent my bow. 8 forky arrows from this hand have fled, and 8 bold heroes by their points lie dead. But sure some god denies me to destroy this fury of the field, this dog of Troy. He said, and twanged the string. The weapon flies at Hector's breast, and sings along the skies. He missed the mark, but pierced Gorgithio's heart, and drenched in royal blood the thirsty dart. Fair Castianira, nymph of form divine, this offspring added to King Priam's line. As full-blown poppies, overcharged with rain, 196 decline the head, and drooping kiss the plain. So sinks the youth. His beauteous head, depressed beneath his helmet, drops upon his breast. Another shaft the raging archer drew, that other shaft with erring fury flew. From Hector, Phoebus turned the flying wound, yet fell not dry or guiltless to the ground. Thy breast, brave Archeptolemus, it tore, and dipped its feathers in no vulgar gore. Headlong he falls. His sudden fall alarms the steeds, that startle at his sounding arms. Hector with grief his charioteer beheld, all pale and breathless on the sanguine field. then bids Cebriones direct the rein, quits his bright car, and issues on the plain dreadful he shouts. From earth a stone he took, and rushed on Teucer with the lifted rock. The youth already strained the forceful yew, the shaft already to his shoulder drew. The feather in his hand, just winged for flight, touched where the neck and hollow chest unite. There, where the juncture knits the channel bone, the furious chief discharged the craggy stone. The bowstring burst beneath the ponderous blow, and his numbed hand dismissed his useless bow that he fell. But Ajax his broad shield displayed, and screened his brother with the mighty shade, till great Alistair and Mecistheus bore the battered archer groaning to the shore. Troy yet found grace before the Olympian sire. He armed their hands, and filled their breasts with fire. The Greeks repulsed, retreat behind their wall, or in the trench on heaps confusedly fall. First of the foe, great Hector marched along, with terror clothed, and more than mortal strong as the bold hound, that gives the lion chase with beating bosom, and with eager pace, hangs on his haunch or fastens on his heels, guards as he turns, and circles as he wheels. Thus oft the Grecians turned, but still they flew. Thus following, Hector still the hindmost slew. When, flying they had passed the trench profound, and many a chief lay gasping on the ground. Before the ships a desperate stand they made, and fired the troops, and called the gods to aid. Fierce on his rattling chariot Hector came. His eyes like Gorgon shot a sanguine flame that withered all their host. Like Mars he stood, dire as the monster, dreadful as the god. Their strong distress the wife of Jove surveyed. Then pensive thus to war's triumphant maid, O daughter of that god, whose arm can wield avenging bolt and shake the sable shield. Now, in this moment of her last despair, shall wretched Greece no more confess our care, condemned to suffer the full force of fate, and drain the dregs of heaven's relentless hate. Gods, shall one raging hand thus level all? What numbers fell? What numbers yet shall fall? What power divine shall Hector's wrath assuage? Still swells the slaughter, and still grows the rage. So spake the imperial regent of the skies, to whom the goddess with the azure eyes. Long since had Hector stained these fields with gore, stretched by some Argive on his native shore. But he above, the sire of heaven, withstands, mocks our attempts, and slights our just demands. The stubborn god, inflexible and hard, forgets my service and deserved reward. Saved I, for this, his favorite son distressed, by stern Eurystheus with long labors pressed. He begged, with tears he begged, in deep dismay, I, shot from heaven, and gave his arm the day that had my wisdom known this dire event, when to grim Pluto's gloomy gates he went. The triple dog had never felt his chain, nor Styx been crossed, nor hell explored in vain. Averse to me of all his heaven of gods, at Thetis' suit the partial thunderer nods. To grace her gloomy, fierce, resenting son, my hopes are frustrate, and my Greeks undone. Some future day, perhaps, he may be moved to call his blue-eyed maid his best beloved. Haste, launch thy chariot, through yon ranks to ride. Myself will arm, and thunder at thy side. Then, goddess, say, shall Hector glory then? That terror of the Greeks, that man of men, when Juno's self and Pallas shall appear, all dreadful in the crimson walks of war. What mighty Trojan then, on yonder shore, expiring, pale and terrible no more, shall feast the fowls, and glut the dogs with gore? She ceased, and Juno reined the steeds with care. Sad-face heaven's awful empress, Saturn's other heir Pallas, meanwhile, her various veil unbound, with flowers adorned, with art immortal crowned. The radiant robe her sacred fingers wove floats in rich waves, and spreads the court of Jove. Her father's arms her mighty limbs invest, his cuirass blazes on her ample breast. The vigorous power the trembling car ascends. Shook by her arm, the massy javelin bends. Huge, ponderous, strong, that when her fury burns proud tyrants humbles, and whole hosts o'erturns. Saturnia lends the lash. The coursers fly. Smooth glides the chariot through the liquid sky. Heaven's gates spontaneous open to the powers, heaven's golden gates, kept by the winged hours that commissioned in alternate watch they stand. The sun's bright portals and the sky's command. Close or unfold, the eternal gates of day bar heaven with clouds, or roll those clouds away. The sounding hinges ring, the clouds divide, prone down the steep of heaven their course they guide. But Jove, incensed, from Ida's top surveyed, and thus enjoined the many-colored maid. Juno and Minerva going to assist the Greeks Thaumantia, mount the winds and stop their car. Against the highest who shall wage the war? If furious yet they dare the vain debate, thus have I spoke, and what I speak is fate. Their coursers crushed beneath the wheels shall lie, their car in fragments, scattered o'er the sky. My lightning these rebellious shall confound, and hurl them flaming headlong to the ground, condemned for 10 revolving years to weep the wounds impressed by burning thunder deep. So shall Minerva learn to fear our ire, nor dare to combat hers and nature's sire. For Juno, headstrong and imperious still, she claims some title to transgress our will. Swift as the wind, the various-colored maid from Ida's top her golden wings displayed. To great Olympus' shining gate she flies, there meets the chariot rushing down the skies, restrains their progress from the bright abodes, and speaks the mandate of the sire of gods. What frenzy goddesses, what rage can move celestial minds to tempt the wrath of Jove? Desist, obedient to his high command. This is his word, and know his word shall stand. His lightning your rebellion shall confound, and hurl ye headlong, flaming, to the ground. Your horses crushed beneath the wheels shall lie, your car in fragments scattered o'er the sky. Yourselves condemned 10 rolling years to weep the wounds impressed by burning thunder deep. So shall Minerva learn to fear his ire, nor dare to combat hers and nature's sire. For Juno, headstrong and imperious still, she claims some title to transgress his will. But thee what desperate insolence has driven to lift thy lance against the King of Heaven? Then, mounting on the pinions of the wind, she flew, and Juno thus her rage resigned. O daughter of that god, whose arm can wield the avenging bolt, and shake the saber shield, no more let beings of superior birth contend with Jove for this low race of earth. Triumphant now miserably slain, they breathe or perish as the fates ordain. But Jove's high counsels full effect shall find, and ever constant, ever rule mankind. She spoke, and backward turned her steeds of light, adorned with manes of gold, and heavenly bright. The hours unloosed them, panting as they stood, and heaped their mangers with ambrosial food. They're tied, they rest in high celestial stalls. The chariot propped against the crystal walls, the pensive goddesses, abashed, controlled, mix with the gods, and fill their seats of gold. The hours taking the horses from Juno's Sear, and now the thunderer meditates his flight from Ida's summits to the Olympian height. Swifter than thought, the wheels instinctive fly, flame through the vast of air, and reach the sky. 'Twas Neptune's charge his coursers to unbrace, and fix the car on its immortal base. There stood the chariot, beaming forth its rays, till with a snowy veil he screened the blaze. That he, whose all-conscious eyes the world behold, the eternal thunderer sat, enthroned in gold. High heaven the footstool of his feet he makes, and wide beneath him all Olympus shakes. Trembling afar the offending powers appeared, confused and silent, for his frown they feared. That he saw their soul, and thus his word imparts. Pallas and Juno, say, why heave your hearts? Soon was your battle o'er. Proud Troy retired before your face, and in your wrath expired. But know, who our almighty power withstand? Unmatched our force, unconquered is our hand. Who shall the sovereign of the skies control? Not all the gods that crown the starry pole. Your hearts shall tremble, if our arms we take, and each immortal nerve with horror shake. For thus I speak, and what I speak shall stand. What power soe'er provokes our lifted hand, on this our hill no more shall hold his place. Cut off and exiled from the ethereal race. Trembling afar the offending powers appeared, confused and silent. For his frown they feared. That he saw their soul, and thus his word imparts. Pallas and Juno, say, why heave your hearts? Soon was your battle o'er. Proud Troy retired before your face, and in your wrath expired. But know, who our almighty power withstand? Unmatched our force, unconquered is our hand. Who shall the sovereign of the skies control? Not all the gods that crown the starry pole. Your hearts shall tremble, if our arms we take, and each immortal nerve with horror shake. For thus I speak, and what I speak shall stand. What power soe'er provokes our lifted hand, on this our hill no more shall hold his place. Cut off and exiled from the ethereal race. Juno and Pallas grieving hear the doom, but feast their souls on Ilion's woes to come. Though secret anger swelled Minerva's breast, the prudent goddess yet her wrath repressed. But Juno, impotent of rage, replies, What hast thou said, O tyrant of the skies? Strength and omnipotence invest thy throne. 'Tis thine to punish, ours to grieve alone, for Greece we grieve, abandoned by her fate to drink the dregs of thy unmeasured hate. From fields forbidden we submiss refrain, with arms unaiding see our Argives slain. Yet grant our counsels still their breasts may move, lest all should perish in the rage of Jove. The goddess thus, and thus the god replies, who swells the clouds and blackens all the skies. The morning sun, awaked by loud alarms, shall see the almighty thunderer in arms. What heaps of Argives then shall load the plain? Those radiant eyes shall view, and view in vain, nor shall great Hector cease the rage of fight, the navy flaming, and thy Greeks in flight, even till the day when certain fates ordain that stern Achilles, his Patroclus slain, shall rise in vengeance, and lay waste the plain. For such is fate, nor canst thou turn its course with all thy rage, with all thy rebel force fly, if thou wilt, to earth's remotest bound, where on her utmost verge the seas resound, where cursed Iapetus and Saturn dwell, fast by the brink within the streams of hell. No sun e'er gilds the gloomy horrors there, no cheerful gales refresh the lazy air. There arm once more the bold Titanian band, and arm in vain, for what I will shall stand. Now deep in ocean sunk the lamp of light, and drew behind the cloudy veil of night. The conquering Trojans mourn his beams decayed. The Greeks rejoicing bless the friendly shade. The victors keep the field, and Hector calls a martial council near the navy walls. These to Scamander's bank apart he led, where thinly scattered lay the heaps of dead. The assembled chiefs, descending on the ground, attend his order, and their prince surround. A massy spear he bore of mighty strength, of full 10 cubits was the lance's length. The point was brass, refulgent to behold, fixed to the wood with circling rings of gold. The noble Hector on his lance reclined, and, bending forward, thus revealed his mind. Ye valiant Trojans, with attention hear. Ye Dardan bands and generous aids, give ear. This day, we hoped, would wrap in conquering flame Greece with her ships, and crown our toils with fame. But darkness now, to save the cowards, falls, and guards them trembling in their wooden walls. Obey the night, and use her. Peaceful hours our steeds to forage, and refresh our powers. Straight from the town be sheep and oxen sought, and strengthening bread and generous wine be brought. Wide o'er the field, high blazing to the sky, let numerous fires the absent sun supply. The flaming piles with plenteous fuel raise, till the bright morn her purple beam displays. Lest, in the silence and the shades of night, Greece on her sable ships attempt her flight. Not unmolested let the wretches gain their lofty decks, or safely cleave the main. Some hostile wound let every dart bestow, some lasting token of the Phrygian foe. Wounds, that long hence may ask their spouses' care, and warn their children from a Trojan war. Now through the circuit of our Ilian wall, let sacred heralds sound the solemn call. To bid the sires with hoary honors crowned, and beardless youths, our battlements surround. Firm be the guard, while distant lie our powers, and let the matrons hang with lights the towers. Lest, under covert of the midnight shade, they, insidious foe, the naked town invade. Suffice, tonight, these orders to obey. A nobler charge shall rouse the dawning day. The gods, I trust, shall give to Hector's hand from these detested foes to free the land, who plout, with fates averse, the watery way. For Trojan vultures a predestined prey, our common safety must be now the care. But soon as morning paints the fields of air, sheathed in bright arms let every troop engage, and the fired fleet behold the battle rage. Then shall Hector and Tydides prove whose fates are heaviest in the scales of Jove. Tomorrow's light, O haste, the glorious morn, shall see his bloody spoils in triumph borne. With this keen javelin shall his breast be gored, and prostrate heroes bleed around their lord. Certain as this, oh, might my days endure, from age inglorious, and black death secure. So might my life and glory know no bound, like Pallas worshipped, like the sun renowned. As the next dawn, the last they shall enjoy, shall crush the Greeks, and end the woes of Troy. The leader spoke. From all his host around shouts of applause along the shores resound. Each from the yoke the smoking steeds untied, and fixed their headstalls to his chariot side. Fat sheep and oxen from the town are led, with generous wine, and all-sustaining bread. Full hecatombs lay burning on the shore. The winds to heaven the curling vapors bore, ungrateful offering to the immortal powers. 197. Whose wrath hung heavy o'er the Trojan towers, nor Priam nor his sons obtained their grace. Proud Troy they hated, and her guilty race. The troops exulting sat in order round, and beaming fires illumined all the ground as when the moon, refulgent lamp of night. 198. O'er heaven's pure azure spreads her sacred light, when not a breath disturbs the deep serene, and not a cloud o'ercasts the solemn scene. Around her throne the vivid planets roll, and stars unnumbered gild the glowing pole. O'er the dark trees a yellower verdure shed, and tip with silver every mountain's head. Then shine the valles, the rocks in prospect rise. Flood of glory bursts from all the skies. The conscious swains, rejoicing in the sight, eye the blue vault, and bless the useful light. So many flames before proud Ilion blaze, and lighten glimmering Xanthus with their rays. The long reflections of the distant fires gleam on the walls, and tremble on the spires. 1,000 piles the dusky horrors gild, and shoot a shady luster o'er the field. Full 50 guards each flaming pile attend, whose umbered arms, by fits, thick flashes send. Loud neigh the coursers o'er their heaps of corn, and ardent warriors wait the rising morn. Book 9. Argument. The embassy to Achilles. Agamemnon, after the last day's defeat, proposes to the Greeks to quit the siege and return to their country. Diom opposes this, and Nestor seconds him, praising his wisdom and resolution. He orders the guard to be strengthened, and a council summoned to deliberate what measures are to be followed in this emergency. Agamemnon pursues this advice, and Nestor further prevails upon him to send ambassadors to Achilles, in order to move him to a reconciliation. Ulysses and Ajax are made choice of, who are accompanied by old Phoenix. They make, each of them, very moving and pressing speeches, but are rejected with roughness by Achilles, who notwithstanding retains Phoenix in his tent. The ambassadors return unsuccessfully to the camp, and the troops betake themselves to sleep. This book, and the next following, take up the space of one night, which is the 27th from the beginning of the poem. The scene lies on the seashore, the station of the Grecian ships. Thus joyful Troy maintained the watch of night, while fear, pale comrade of inglorious flight, 199 and heaven-bred horror on the Grecian part, sat on each face, and saddened every heart that as from its cloudy dungeon issuing forth, a double tempest of the west and north swells o'er the sea, from Thracia's frozen shore, heaps waves on waves, and bids the Aegean roar. This way and that the boiling deeps are tossed. Such various passions urged. The troubled host, great Agamemnon grieved above the rest. Superior sorrows swelled his royal breast. Himself his orders to the heralds bears, to bid to council all the Grecian peers, but bid in whispers. These surround their chief, in solemn sadness and majestic grief. The king amidst the mournful circle rose. Down his wan cheek a briny torrent flows, so silent fountains, from a rock's tall head, in sable streams soft trickling waters shed. With more than vulgar grief he stood oppressed. Words, mixed with sighs, thus bursting from his breast. Ye sons of Greece, partake your leader's care. Fellows in arms and princes of the war. Of partial Jove too justly we complain, and heavenly oracles believed in vain that a safe return was promised to our toils, with conquest honored and enriched with spoils. Now shameful flight alone can save the host. Our wealth, our people, and our glory lost, so Jove decrees, almighty Lord of all Jove, at whose nod whole empires rise or fall, who shakes the feeble props of human trust, and towers and armies humbles to the dust. Haste, then, for ever quit these fatal fields, haste to the joys our native country yields. Spread all your canvas, all your oars employ, nor hope the fall of heaven-defended Troy. He said. Deep silence held the Grecian band. Silent, unmoved in dire dismay they stand. A pensive scene, till Tydeus' warlike son rolled on the king his eyes, and thus begun. When kings advise us to renounce our fame, first let him speak who first has suffered shame. If I oppose thee, prince, thy wrath withhold, the laws of counsel bid my tongue be bold. Thou first, and thou alone, in fields of fight, durst brand my courage, and defame my might. Nor from a friend the unkind reproach appeared. The Greeks stood witness, all our army heard. The gods, O chief, from whom our honors spring, the gods have made thee but by halves a king. They gave thee scepters and a wide command. They gave dominion o'er the seas and land. The noblest power that might the world control they gave thee not. A brave and virtuous soul has this a general's voice, that would suggest fears like his own to every Grecian breast. Confiding in our want of worth, he stands, and if we fly, 'tis what our king commands. Go thou, inglorious, from the embattled plain. Ships thou hast store and nearest to the main. A noble care the Grecians shall employ, to combat, conquer, and extirpate Troy. Here Greece shall stay, or if all Greece retire, myself shall stay, till Troy or I expire. Myself and Sthenelus will fight for fame. God bade us fight, and 'twas with God we came. He ceased. The Greeks loud acclamations raise, and voice to voice resounds Tydides' praise. Wise Nestor then his reverend figure reared. He spoke. The host in still attention heard frowny face 200. O truly great, in whom the gods have joined such strength of body with such force of mind. In conduct, as in courage, you excel, still first to act what you advise so well. These wholesome counsels which thy wisdom moves, applauding Greece with common voice approves. Kings thou canst blame. A bold but prudent youth, and blame even kings with praise, because with truth, and yet those years that since thy birth have run would hardly style thee Nestor's youngest son. Then let me add what yet remains behind, a thought, unfinished in that generous mind. Age bids me speak, nor shall the advice I bring disgrace the people or offend the king. Cursed is the man, and void of law and right, unworthy property, unworthy light, unfit for public rule or private care, that wretch, that monster, who delights in war, whose lust is murder, and whose horrid joy to tear his country, and his kind destroy. This night refresh and fortify thy train. Between the trench and wall let guards remain, be that the duty of the young and bold. But thou, O king, to counsel call the old. Great is thy sway, and weighty are thy cares. Thy high commands must spirit all our wars, with Thracian wines recruit thy honored guests. For happy counsels flow from sober feasts. Wise, weighty counsels aid a state distressed, and such a monarch as can choose the best. See what a blaze from hostile tents aspires, how near our fleet approach the Trojan fires. Who can, unmoved, behold the dreadful light? What eye beholds them and can close tonight? This dreadful interval determines all. Tomorrow Troy must flame, or Greece must fall. Thus spoke the hoary sage. The rest obey. Swift through the gates the guards direct their way. His son was first to pass the lofty mound, the generous Thrasymed, in arms renowned. Next him, Ascalaphus, Ilion, stood, the double offspring of the warrior god. Deipyrus, Apharius, Marion join, and Lycomede of Creon's noble line. 7 were the leaders of the knightly bands, and each bold chief 100 spears commands. The fires they light, to short repasts they fall. Some line the trench, and others man the wall. The king of men, on public councils bent, convened the princes in his ample tent. Each seized a portion of the kingly feast, but stayed his hand when thirst and hunger ceased. Then Nestor spoke, for wisdom long approved, and slowly rising, thus the council moved. Monarch of nations, whose superior sway assembled states, and lords of earth obey, the laws and scepters to thy hand are given, and millions own the care of thee and heaven. That, O king, the counsels of my age attend. With thee my cares begin, with thee must end. Thee, prince, it fits alike to speak and hear, pronounce with judgment, with regard give ear, to see no wholesome motion be withstood, and ratify the best for public good, nor, though a meaner give advice, repine, but follow it, and make the wisdom thine. Hear then a thought, not now conceived in haste, at once my present judgment and my past. When from Pelides' tent you forced the maid, I first opposed, and faithful durst dissuade. But bold of soul, when headlong fury fired, you wronged the man, by men and gods admired. Now seek some means his fatal wrath to end, with prayers to move him, or with gifts to bend. To whom the king, with justice hast thou shown a prince's faults, and I with reason own, that happy man, whom Jove still honors most, is more than armies, and himself a host. Blessed in his love, this wondrous hero stands. Heaven fights his war, and humbles all our bands. Fain would my heart, which erred through frantic rage, the wrathful chief and angry gods assuaged. If gifts immense his mighty soul can bow. 201 Hear, all ye Greeks, and witness what I vow. 10 weighty talents of the purest gold, and twice 10 vases of refulgent mold. 7 sacred tripods, whose unsullied frame yet knows no office, nor has felt the flame. 12 steeds unmatched in fleetness and in force, and still victorious in the dusty course, wink with a frown rich where the man whose ample stores exceed the prizes purchased by their winged speed. Winky face, 7 lovely captives of the lesbian line, skilled in each art, unmatched in form divine, the same I chose for more than vulgar charms, when Lesbos sank beneath the hero's arms. All these, to buy his friendship, shall be paid, and joined with these the long-contested maid. With all her charms, Briseis I resign, and solemn swear those charms were never mine. Untouched she stayed, uninjured she removes, pure from my arms and guiltless of my loves. 202 these instant shall be his, and if the powers give to our arms proud Ilion's hostile towers, then shall he store, when Greece the spoil divides, with gold and brass his loaded navy's sides. Besides, full 20 nymphs of Trojan race with copious love shall crown his warm embrace, such as himself will choose, who yield to none, or yield to Helen's heavenly charms alone. Yet hear me further, when our wars are o'er, if safe we land on Argos' fruitful shore, there shall he live my son, our honors share, and with Orestes' self divide my care. Yet more 3 daughters in my court are bred, and each well worthy of a royal bed. Laodice and Iphigenia fair, 203, and bright Chrysothemis with golden hair. Her let him choose whom most his eyes approve. I ask no presents, no reward for love, myself will give the dower. So vast a store as never father gave a child before. 7 ample cities shall confess his sway, Hymenope and ferry him obey, Cardamile with ample turrets crowned, and sacred Pedasus for vines renowned. Epea fair, the pastures Hera yields, and rich Anthea with her flowery fields. Frowny face, 204. The whole extent to Pylos' sandy plain, along the verdant margin of the main, their heifers graze, and laboring oxen toil. Bold are the men, and generous is the soil. There shall he reign, with power and justice crowned, and rule the tributary realms around. All this I give, his vengeance to control, and sure all this may move his mighty soul. Pluto, the grisly god, who never spares, who feels no mercy, and who hears no prayers, lives dark and dreadful in deep hell's abodes, and mortals hate him, as the worst of gods, great though he be. It fits him to obey, since more than his my years, and more my sway. Pluto the monarch thus, the reverend Nestor then, great Agamemnon, glorious king of men. Such are thy offers as a prince may take, and such as fits a generous king to make. Let chosen delegates this hour be sent, myself will name them, to Pelides' tent. Let Phoenix lead, revered for hoary age, great Ajax next, and Ithacus the sage. Yet more to sanctify the word you send, let Hodius and Eurybates attend. Now pray to Jove to grant what Greece demands. Pray in deep silence, 205, and with purest hands. 206. The embassy to Alois, he said, and all approved. The heralds bring the cleansing water from the living spring. The youth with wine the sacred goblets crowned, and large libations drenched the sands around. The rite performed, the chiefs their thirst allay. Then from the royal tent they take their way. Wise Nestor turns on each his careful eye, forbids to offend, instructs them to apply. Much he advised them all, Ulysses most, to deprecate the chief, and save the host. Through the still night they march, and hear the roar of murmuring billows on the sounding shore. Datio Neptune, ruler of the seas profound, whose liquid arms the mighty globe surround, they pour forth vows, their embassy to bless, and calm the rage of stern Aeacides. And now arrived, where on the sandy bay the Myrmidonian tents and vessels lay. Amused at ease, the godlike man they found, pleased with the solemn harp's harmonious sound. The well-wrought harp from conquered the bay came, of polished silver was its costly frame. With this he soothes his angry soul, and sings the immortal deeds of heroes and of kings. Patroclus only of the royal train, placed in his tent, attends the lofty strain. Full opposite he sat, and listened long, in silence waiting till he ceased the song. Unseen the Grecian embassy proceeds to his high tent. The great Ulysses leads, Achilles starting, as the chiefs he spied, leaped from his seat, and laid the harp aside. With like surprise arose Menoetius' son. Pelides grasped their hands, and thus begun. Princes, all hail! Whatever brought you here, or strong necessity, or urgent fear. Welcome, though Greeks, for not as foes ye came, to me more dear than all that bear the name. With that, The chiefs beneath his roof he led, and placed in seats with purple carpets spread. Then thus, Patroclus, crown a larger bowl, mix purer wine, and open every soul that of all the warriors yonder host can send. Thy friend most honors these, and these thy friend. He said, Patroclus o'er the blazing fire heaps in a brazen vase 3 chins entire. The brazen vase Automedon sustains, which flesh of porker, sheep, and goat contains. Achilles at the genial feast presides, the parts transfixes, and with skill divides. Meanwhile Patroclus sweats, the fire to raise. The tent is brightened with the rising blaze. Then, when the languid flames at length subside, he strows a bed of glowing embers wide. Above the coals the smoking fragments turns, and sprinkles sacred salt from lifted urns. With bread the glittering canisters they load, which round the board Menoetius' son bestowed. Himself, opposed to Ulysses full in sight, each portion parts, and orders every rite. The first fat offering to the immortals due, amidst the greedy flames Patroclus threw. Then each, indulging in the social feast, his thirst and hunger soberly repressed. That done, to Phoenix Ajax gave the sign. Not unperceived, Ulysses crowned with wine the foaming bowl, and instant thus began his speech, addressing to the godlike man. Health to Achilles! Happy are thy guests, not those more honored whom Atrides feasts. Though generous plenty crown thy loaded boards, that Agamemnon's regal tent affords. But greater cares sit heavy on our souls, nor eased by banquets or by flowing bowls. What scenes of slaughter in yon fields appear! The dead we mourn, and for the living fear. Greece on the brink of fate all doubtful stands, and owns no help but from thy saving hands. Troy and her aids for ready vengeance call. Their threatening tents already shade our wall. Hear how with shouts their conquest they proclaim, and point at every ship their vengeful flame. For them the Father of the gods declares, theirs are his omens, and his thunder theirs. See, full of Jove, avenging Hector rise. Heaven and earth the raging chief defies. What fury in his breast, what lightning in his eyes. He waits but for the morn, to sink in flame the ships, the Greeks, and all the Grecian name. Heavens, how my country's woes distract my mind, lest fate accomplish all his rage designed. And must we, gods, our heads inglorious lay in Trojan dust, and this the fatal day? Return, Achilles. O return, though late, to save thy Greeks, and stop the course of fate. If in that heart or grief or courage lies, rise to redeem. Ah, yet to conquer, rise. The day may come, when, all our warriors slain, that heart shall melt, that courage rise in vain. Regard in time, O Prince divinely brave, those wholesome counsels which thy father gave. When Peleus in his aged arms embraced his parting son, these accents were his last. My child, with strength, with glory, and success, thy arms may Juno and Minerva bless. Trust that to heaven. But thou, thy cares engage to calm thy passions and subdue thy rage. From gentler manners let thy glory grow, and shun contention, the sure source of woe. That young and old may in thy praise combine, the virtues of humanity be thine. This now despised advice thy father gave. Check thy anger, and be truly brave if thou wilt yield to great Atrides' prayers. Gifts worthy thee his royal hand prepares. If not, but hear me, while I number o'er the proffered presents, an exhaustless store. Point 10 weighty talents of the purest gold, and twice 10 vases of refulgent mold. 7 sacred tripods, whose unsullied frame yet knows no office, nor has felt the flame. 12 steeds unmatched in fleetness and in force, and still victorious in the dusty course. Wink with a frown, rich were the man, whose ample stores exceed the prizes purchased by their winged speed. Winky face 7 lovely captives of the Lesbian line, skilled in each art, unmatched in form divine. The same he chose for more than vulgar charms, when Lesbos sank beneath thy conquering arms. All these, to buy thy friendship shall be paid, and, joined with these, the long-contested maid. With all her charms, Briseis he'll resign, and solemn swear those charms were only thine. Untouched she stayed, uninjured she removes, pure from his arms, and guiltless of his loves. These instant shall be thine, and if the powers give to our arms proud Ilion's hostile towers, then shalt thou store, when Greece the spoil divides, with gold and brass thy loaded navy's sides. Besides, full 20 nymphs of Trojan race with copious love shall crown thy warm embrace, such as thyself shall chose. who yield to none, or yield to Helen's heavenly charms alone. Yet hear me further, when our wars are o'er, if safe we land on Argo's fruitful shore, there shalt thou live his son, his honor share, and with Orestes' self divide his care. Yet more 3 daughters in his court are bred, and each well worthy of a royal bed. Laodice and Iphigenia fair, and bright Chrysothemis with golden hair. Her shalt thou wed whom most thy eyes approve. He asks no presents, no reward for love. Himself will give the dower, so vast a store as never father gave a child before. 7 ample cities shall confess thy sway, the Enope and Phaerae thee obey. Cardamile with ample turrets crowned, and sacred Pedasus, for vines renowned. Aepia fair, the pastures Hera yields, and rich Anthea with her flowery fields. The whole extent to Pylos' sandy plain, along the verdant margin of the main. Their heifers graze, and laboring oxen toil. Bold are the men, and generous is the soil. There shalt thou reign, with power and justice crowned. Health to Achilles! Happy are thy guests, not those more honored whom Atrides feasts. Though generous plenty crown thy loaded boards, that Agamemnon's regal tent affords. But greater cares sit heavy on our souls, nor eased by banquets or by flowing bowls. What scenes of slaughter in yon fields appear! The dead we mourn, and for the living fear. Greece on the brink of fate all doubtful stands, and owns no help but from thy saving hands. Troy and her aids for ready vengeance call. Their threatening tents already shade our wall. Hear how with shouts their conquest they proclaim, and point at every ship their vengeful flame. For them the Father of the gods declares, theirs are his omens, and his thunder theirs. See, full of Jove, avenging Hector rise. Heaven and earth the raging chief defies. What fury in his breast, what lightning in his eyes. He waits but for the morn, to sink in flame the ships, the Greeks, and all the Grecian name. Heavens, how my country's woes distract my mind, lest fate accomplish all his rage designed. And must we, gods, our heads inglorious lay in Trojan dust, and this the fatal day? Return, Achilles. O return, though late, to save thy Greeks, and stop the course of fate. If in that heart or grief or courage lies, rise to redeem. Ah, yet to conquer, rise. The day may come, when, all our warriors slain, that heart shall melt, that courage rise in vain. Regard in time, O Prince divinely brave, those wholesome counsels which thy father gave. When Peleus in his aged arms embraced his parting son, these accents were his last. My child, with strength, with glory, and success, thy arms may Juno and Minerva bless. Trust that to heaven. But thou, thy cares engage to calm thy passions, and subdue thy rage. From gentler manners let thy glory grow, and shun contention, the sure source of woe. That young and old may in thy praise combine, the virtues of humanity be thine. This now despised advice thy father gave. Check thy anger, and be truly brave if thou wilt yield to great Atrides' prayers. Gifts worthy thee his royal hand prepares. If not, but hear me, while I number o'er the proffered presents, an exhaustless store. 10 weighty talents of the purest gold, and twice 10 vases of refulgent mold. 7 sacred tripods, whose unsullied frame yet knows no office, nor has felt the flame. 12 steeds unmatched in fleetness and in force, and still victorious in the dusty course. Wink with a frown, rich were the man, whose ample stores exceed the prizes purchased by their winged speed. Winky face, 7 lovely captives of the lesbian line, skilled in each art, unmatched in form divine. The same he chose for more than vulgar charms, when Lesbos sank beneath thy conquering arms. All these, to buy thy friendship shall be paid, and, joined with these, the long-contested maid. With all her charms, Briseis he'll resign, and solemn swear those charms were only thine. Untouched she stayed, uninjured she removes, pure from his arms, and guiltless of his loves. These instant shall be thine, and if the powers give to our arms proud Ilion's hostile towers, then shalt thou store, when Greece the spoil divides, with gold and brass thy loaded navy's sides. Besides, full 20 nymphs of Trojan race with copious love shall crown thy warm embrace, such as thyself shall chose, who yield to none, or yield to Helen's heavenly charms alone. Yet hear me further, when our wars are o'er, if safe we land on Argo's fruitful shore, there shalt thou live his son, his honor share, and with Orestes' self divide his care. Yet more 3 daughters in his court are bred, and each well worthy of a royal bed. Laodice and Iphigenia fair, and bright Chrysothemis with golden hair. Her shalt thou wed whom most thy eyes approve. He asks no presents, no reward for love. Himself will give the dower, so vast a store as never father gave a child before. 7 Ample cities shall confess thy sway, the Enope and Fairy thee obey. Cardamile with ample turrets crowned, and sacred Pedasus, for vines renowned. Epea fair, the pastures Hera yields, and rich Anthea with her flowery fields. The whole extent to Pylos' sandy plain, along the verdant margin of the main, their heifers graze, and laboring oxen toil. Bold are the men, and generous is the soil. There shalt thou reign, with power and justice crowned, and rule the tributary realms around. Such are the proffers which this day we bring, such the repentance of a suppliant king. But if all this, relentless, thou disdain, if honor and if interest plead in vain, yet some redress to suppliant Greece afford, and be, amongst her guardian gods, adored that if no regard thy suffering country claim, hear thy own glory, and the voice of fame. For now that chief, whose unresisted ire made nations tremble, and whole hosts retire, proud Hector, now, the unequal fight demands, and only triumphs to deserve thy hands. Then thus the goddess born, Ulysses, hear a faithful speech that knows nor art nor fear. What in my secret soul is understood, my tongue shall utter, and my deeds make good. Let Greece then know, my purpose I retain. Nor with new treaties vex my peace in vain. Who dares think one thing, and another tell, my heart detests him as the gates of hell. Then thus in short my fixed resolves attend, which nor Atrides nor his Greeks can bend. Long toils, long perils in their cause I bore, but now the unfruitful glories charm no more. Fight or not fight, alike reward we claim, the wretch and hero find their prize the same. Alike regretted in the dust he lies, who yields ignobly, or who bravely dies. Of all my dangers, all my glorious pains, a life of labors, lo, what fruit remains? As the bold bird her helpless young attends, from danger guards them and from want defends. In search of prey she wings the spacious air, and with the untasted food supplies her care. For thankless Greece such hardships have I braved, her wives, her infants, by my labors saved. Long sleepless nights in heavy arms I stood, and sweat laborious days in dust and blood, that I sacked 12 ample cities on the main, 207, and 12 lay smoking on the Trojan plain. Then at Atrides' haughty feet were laid the wealth I gathered, and the spoils I made your mighty monarch these in peace possessed. Some few my soldiers had, himself the rest, some present too to every prince was paid, and every prince enjoys the gift he made. I only must refund of all his train. See what preeminence our merits gain. My spoil alone his greedy soul delights. My spouse alone must bless his lustful nights. The woman let him, as he may, enjoy. But what's the quarrel, then, of Greece to Troy? What to these shores the assembled nations draws? What calls for vengeance but a woman's cause? Are fair endowments and a beauteous face beloved by none but those of Atreus' race? The wife whom choice and passion doth approve, sure every wise and worthy man will love, nor did my fair one less distinction claim. Slave as she was, my soul adored the dame. Wronged in my love, all proffers I disdain. Deceived for once, I trust not kings again. Why ye have my answer. What remains to do, your king, Ulysses, may consult with you what needs. He the defense this arm can make. Has he not walls no human force can shake? Has he not fenced his guarded navy round with piles, with ramparts, and a trench profound? And will not these, the wonders he has done, repel the rage of Priam's single son? There was a time, 'twas when for Greece I fought, when Hector's prowess no such wonders wrought. He kept the verge of Troy, nor dared to wait Achilles' fury at the Scaean gate. He tried it once, and scarce was saved by fate. But now those ancient enmities are o'er. Tomorrow we the favoring gods implore. Then shall you see our parting vessels crowned, and hear with oars the Hellespont resound. The third day hence shall Pythia greet our sails, 208 if mighty Neptune send propitious gales. Pythia to her Achilles shall restore the wealth he left for this detested shore. Thither the spoils of this long war shall pass, the ruddy gold, the steel and shining brass. My beauteous captives thither I'll convey, and all that rests of my unravished prey. One only valued, gift your tyrant gave, and that resumed, the fair Lernetian slave. Then tell him, loud, that all the Greeks may hear, and learn to scorn the wretch they basely fear. Wink with a frown, forearmed in impudence. Mankind he braves, and meditates new cheats on all his slaves. Though shameless as he is, to face these eyes is what he dares not. If he dares he dies. Winky face, tell him all terms, all commerce I decline, nor share his counsel, nor his battle join. For once deceived was his, but twice were mine. No, let the stupid prince, whom Jove deprives of sense and justice, run where frenzy drives. His gifts are hateful. Kings of such a kind stand but as slaves before a noble mind, not though he proffered all himself possessed, and all his rapine could from others wrest. Not all the golden tides of wealth that crown the many-peopled Orchomenian town. Wink with a frown. 209. Not all proud Thebes' unrivaled walls contain the world's great empress on the Egyptian plain, that spreads her conquests o'er 1,000 states, and pours her heroes through 100 gates, 200 horsemen and 200 cars, from each wide portal issuing to the wars. Wink with a frown. 210. Though bribes were heaped on bribes, in number, more than dust in fields or sands along the shore, should all these offers for my friendship call, 'tis he that offers, and I scorn them all. Atrides' daughter never shall be led, an ill-matched consort, to Achilles' bed. Like golden Venus though she charmed the heart, and vied with Pallas in the works of art. Some greater Greek let those high nuptials grace. I hate alliance with a tyrant's race. If heaven restore me to my realms with life, the reverend Peleus shall elect my wife. Thessalian nymphs there are of form divine, and kings that sue to mix their blood with mine. Blessed in kind love, my years shall glide away, content with just hereditary sway. There, deaf forever to the martial strife, enjoy the dear prerogative of life. Life is not to be bought with heaps of gold. Not all Apollo's Pythian treasures hold, or Troy once held, in peace and pride of sway, can bribe the poor possession of a day. Lost herds and treasures we by arms regain, and steeds unrivaled on the dusty plain. But from our lips, the vital spirit fled, returns no more to wake the silent dead. Why fates long since by Thetis were disclosed, and each alternate, life or fame, proposed. Here, if I stay, before the Trojan town, short is my date, but deathless my renown. If I return, I quit immortal praise for years on years, and long extended days. Convinced, though late, I find my fond mistake, and warn the Greeks the wiser choice to make. To quit these shores, their native seats enjoy, nor hope the fall of heaven-defended Troy. Jove's arm displayed asserts her from the skies. Her hearts are strengthened, and her glories rise. Go then to Greece, report our fixed design. Bid all your councils, all your armies join, let all your forces, all your arts conspire, to save the ships, the troops, the chiefs, from fire. One stratagem has failed, and others will. Ye find, Achilles is unconquered still. Go then, digest my message as ye may, but here this night let reverend Phoenix stay. His tedious toils and hoary hairs demand a peaceful death in Pythia's friendly land. But whether he remain or sail with me, his age be sacred, and his will be free. Greek Alois the son of Peleus ceased. The chiefs around in silence wrapped, in consternation drowned, attend the stern reply. Then Phoenix rose. Wink with a frown. Down his white beard a stream of sorrow flows. Winky face, and while the fate of suffering Greece he mourned, with accent weak these tender words returned. Proserpine, divine Achilles, wilt thou then retire, and leave our hosts in blood, our fleets on fire? If wrath so dreadful fill thy ruthless mind, how shall thy friend, thy Phoenix, stay behind? The royal Peleus, when from Pythia's coast he sent thee early to the Achaean host. Thy youth is then in sage debates unskilled, and new to perils of the direful field. He bade me teach thee all the ways of war, to shine in councils, and in camps to dare. Never, never let me leave thy side. No time shall part us, and no fate divide. Not though the God that breathed my life restore the bloom I boasted, and the port I bore, when Greece of old beheld my youthful flames, delightful Greece, the land of lovely dames. My father faithless to my mother's arms, old as he was, adored a stranger's charms. I tried what youth could do at her desire, to win the damsel, and prevent my sire. Why sire with curses loads my hated head, and cries, Ye furies, barren be his bed. Infernal Jove, the vengeful fiends below, and ruthless Proserpine, confirmed his vow. Despair and grief distract my laboring mind. Gods, What a crime my impious heart designed. I thought, but some kind God that thought suppressed, to plunge the poniard in my father's breast, then meditate my flight. My friends in vain with prayers entreat me, and with force detained on fat of rams, black bulls and brawny swine, they daily feast with draughts of fragrant wine. Strong guards they placed and watched 9 nights entire. The roofs and porches flamed with constant fire. The 10th, I forced the gates, unseen of all, and, favored by the night, o'erleaped the wall. My travels thence through spacious Greece extend. In Thyia's court at last my labor's end your sire received me, as his son caressed, with gifts enriched, and with possessions blessed. The strong Dolopians thenceforth owned my reign, and all the coast that runs along the main. To by love to thee his bounties I repaid, and early wisdom to thy soul conveyed. Great as thou art, my lessons made thee brave. A child I took thee, but a hero gave. Thy infant breast a like affection showed. Still in my arms, an ever-pleasing load, or at my knee, by Phoenix wouldst thou stand. No food was grateful but from Phoenix' hand. 211. I pass my watchings o'er thy helpless years, the tender labors, the compliant cares. The gods, I thought, reversed their hard decree, and Phoenix felt a father's joys in thee. Thy growing virtues justified my cares, and promised comfort to my silver hairs. Now be thy fatal rage, resigned. A cruel heart ill suits a manly mind. The gods, the only great and only wise, are moved by offerings, vows, and sacrifice. Offending man their high compassion wins, and daily prayers atone for daily sins. Prayers are Jove's daughters, of celestial race. Lame are their feet, and wrinkled is their face. With humble mien, and with dejected eyes, constant they follow, where injustice flies. Injustice swift, erect, and unconfined, sweeps the wide earth, and tramples o'er mankind, while prayers to heal her wrongs move slow behind. Who hears these daughters of Almighty Jove? For him they mediate to the throne above. When man rejects the humble suit they make, the sire revenges for the daughter's sake. From Jove commissioned, fierce injustice then descends to punish unrelenting men. Oh, let not headlong passion bear the sway, these reconciling goddesses obey. Do honors to the seed of Jove belong, do honors calm the fierce, and bend the strong. Were these not paid thee by the terms we bring, were rage still harbored in the haughty king. Nor Greece nor all her fortunes should engage thy friend to plead against so just a rage. But since what honor asks the general sends, and sends by those whom most thy heart commends, the best and noblest of the Grecian train, permit not these to sue and sue in vain. Let me, my son, an ancient fact unfold, a great example drawn from times of old. Hear what our fathers were, and what their praise, who conquered their revenge in former days. Where Calydon on rocky mountains stands, 212 once fought the Aetolian and Curtion bands. To guard it, those, to conquer, these advance, and mutual deaths were dealt with mutual chance. The silver Cynthia bade contention rise, in vengeance of neglected sacrifice. On Enyeus' field she sent a monstrous boar, that levelled harvests, and whole forests tore. This beast, when many a chief his tusks had slain, great Meleager stretched along the plain. Then, for his spoils, a new debate arose, the neighbor nations thence commencing foes. Strong as they were, the bold Curetes failed, while Meleager's thundering arm prevailed, till rage at length inflamed his lofty breast, for rage invades the wisest and the best. Cursed by Althea, to his wrath he yields, and in his wife's embrace forgets the fields. She from Marpessa sprung, divinely fair, and matchless Idas, more than man in war. The god of day adored the mother's charms. Against the god the father bent his arms. The afflicted pair, their sorrows to proclaim, from Cleopatra changed their daughter's name, and called Alcyone. A name to show the father's grief, the mourning mother's woe. To her the chief retired from stern debate, but found no peace from fierce Althea's hate. Althea's hate the unhappy warrior drew, whose luckless hand his royal uncle slew. She beat the ground, and called the powers beneath on her own son to wreak her brother's death. Hell heard her curses from the realms profound, and the red fiends that walk the nightly round. In vain Aetolia her deliverer waits, war shakes her walls, and thunders at her gates. She sent ambassadors, a chosen band, priests of the gods, and elders of the land, besought the chief to save the sinking state. Their prayers were urgent, and their proffers great sad face full 50 acres of the richest ground, half pasture green, and half with vineyards crowned his suppliant father, aged Ennius, came. His sisters followed. Even the vengeful dame Althea sues. His friends before him fall. He stands relentless, and rejects them all. Meanwhile the victor's shouts ascend the skies. The walls are scaled. The rolling flames arise. At length his wife, a form divine, appears with piercing cries and supplicating tears. She paints the horrors of a conquered town, the heroes slain, the palaces o'erthrown, the matrons ravished, the whole race enslaved. The warrior heard, he vanquished, and he saved. The Aetolians, long disdained, now took their turn, and left the chief their broken faith to mourn. Learn hence, betimes to curb pernicious ire, nor stay till yonder fleets ascend in fire. Accept the presents. Draw thy conquering sword, and be amongst our guardian gods adored. Thus he, the stern Achilles, thus replied, my second father and my reverend guide. Thy friend, believe me, no such gifts demands, and asks no honors from a mortal's hands. Jove honors me and favors my designs. His pleasure guides me and his will confines, and here I stay if such his high behest, while life's warm spirit beats within my breast. Yet hear one word, and lodge it in thy heart. No more molest me on Atride's part. Is it for him these tears are taught to flow? For him these sorrows? For my mortal foe? A generous friendship no cold medium knows, burns with one love, with one resentment glows. One should our interests and our passions be. My friend must hate the man that injures me. To do this, my phoenix, 'tis a generous part, and share my realms, my honors, and my heart. Let these return, our voyage or our stay, rest undetermined till the dawning day. He ceased, then ordered for the sages bade a warmer couch with numerous carpets spread. With that, stern Ajax his long silence broke, and thus, impatient, to Ulysses spoke. Hence let us go, why waste we time in vain? See what effect our low submissions gain. Liked or not liked, his words we must relate. The Greeks expect them, and our heroes wait. Proud as he is, that iron heart retains its stubborn purpose, and his friends disdains, stern and unpitying. If a brother bleed, on just atonement, we remit the deed. A sire the slaughter of his son forgives. The price of blood discharged, the murderer lives. The haughtiest hearts at length their rage resign, and gifts can conquer every soul but thine. 213. The gods that unrelenting breast have steeled, and cursed thee with a mind that cannot yield. 1 Woman slave was ravished from thy arms. Lo, 7 are offered, and of equal charms. Then hear, Achilles, be of better mind. Revere thy roof, and to thy guests be kind. And know the men of all the Grecian host, who honor worth and prize thy valor most. O soul of battles and thy people's guide! To Ajax thus the first of Greeks replied. Well hast thou spoke, but at the tyrant's name my rage rekindles, and my soul's on flame. 'Tis just resentment, and becomes the brave. Disgraced, dishonored, like the vilest slave. Return, then, heroes, and our answer bear, the glorious combat is no more my care. Not till, amidst yon sinking navy slain, the blood of Greeks shall dye the sable main. Not till the flames, by Hector's fury thrown, consume your vessels and approach my own. Just there, the impetuous homicide shall stand, there cease his battle and there feel our hand. This said, each prince a double goblet crowned, and cast a large libation on the ground. Then to their vessels, through the gloomy shades, the chiefs return. Divine Ulysses leads, meantime Achilles' slaves prepared a bed, with fleeces, carpets, and soft linen spread. There, till the sacred morn restored the day, in slumber sweet the reverend Phoenix lay. But in his inner tent, an ampler space, Achilles slept, and in his warm embrace fair Diomede of the Lesbian race. Last, for Patroclus was the couch prepared, whose nightly joys the beauteous Iphis shared. Achilles to his friend consigned her charms, when Scyros fell before his conquering arms, and now the elected chiefs whom Greece had sent, passed through the hosts, and reached the royal tent. Then rising all, with goblets in their hands, the peers and leaders of the Achaean bands hailed their return. Atrides first begun. Say what success? Divine Laertes' son. Achilles' high resolves declare to all. Returns the chief, or must our navy fall? Great king of nations, Ithacus replied. Fixed is his wrath, unconquered is his pride. He slights thy friendship, thy proposals scorns, and, thus implored, with fiercer fury burns. O save our army, and our fleets to free, is not his care. But left to Greece and thee your eyes shall view, when morning paints the sky, beneath his oars the whitening billows fly. Us too he bids our oars and sails employ, nor hope the fall of heaven-protected Troy. For Jove o'ershads her with his arm divine, inspires her war, and bids her glory shine. Such was his word. What further he declared, these sacred heralds and great Ajax heard. But Phoenix in his tent the chief retains, safe to transport him to his native plains, when morning dawns. If other he decree, his age is sacred, and his choice is free. Ulysses ceased. The great Achaean host, with sorrow seized, in consternation lost, attend the stern reply. Tydides broke the general silence and undaunted spoke. Why should we gifts to proud Achilles send, or strive with prayers his haughty soul to bend? His country's woes he glories to deride, and prayers will burst that swelling heart with pride that be the fierce impulse of his rage obeyed. Our battles let him or desert or aid. Then let him arm when Jove or he think fit, that, to his madness, or to heaven commit. What for ourselves we can, is always ours. This night, let due repast refresh our powers wink with a frown for. Strength consists in spirits and in blood, and those are owed to generous wine and food winky face. But when the rosy messenger of day strikes the blue mountains with her golden ray, ranged at the ships, let all our squadrons shine in flaming arms, a long extended line. In the dread front let great Atrides stand, the first in danger, as in high command. Shouts of acclaim the listening heroes raise, then each to heaven the due libations pays, till sleep, descending o'er the tents, bestows the grateful blessings of desired repose. 214.